welcome to the next transmission of Divine Intervention. I want to basically articulate what this entire concept is. In a nutshell, this concept, Project Divine Intervention, is an attempt from me to articulate something that I've come across in my own life, and something that I know affects many other people in the world, that I see people do wrong again and again, all the time, every day. Something that I've learned that will give you a reason to act a certain way and a reason not to act a certain way, that I see many people give no thought to, day in and day out. It's essentially a person's psychotic nature. I heard somebody one time in my life, a guy named Ethan, tell me that we are all just psychotic apes. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Mostly, when you call a person psycho, it's because they are a serial killer or something, right? But we are all in possession of psyches and psychological, psychoactive potential. And even a healthy, sober person has a psychoactive part to themselves. Now, where this comes into play is mainly transmissions, communication, messages that you send and receive when you're out and about, when you put things on the internet, when you make music, make videos, put images on walls, paint, speak, when you're in public, having conversations with people, even the faces you make, the gestures you make, you know? I could do a bunch of stuff that would trip you out right now, you know what I mean? For example, girls who wear necklaces with the all-seeing eye on it, or people who have tattoos of the Eye of Ra, the Egyptian Eye of Ra. They don't explain why. Gypsy girls, tarot cards, things that are meant to be basically adjacent to, compounded with your psychoactive potential. But specifically, I want to talk about not the extreme end of things, which is people attempting to be gypsies or fortune tellers or hippie people who get you high on psychedelic drugs and then talk about how fate is intertwined with your soul and get you into a suggestive state and take advantage of that, whether or not they think they're trying to help you or hurt you. I want to talk about a more normal way that this psychoactive potential is misused, or more than misused, I guess a better way to say that would be sort of damaged every day. This is normal situations and normal people. When you go out to the bar, when you go out to the grocery store, right? People don't know the context of your conversation 10 minutes before you enter the room. They don't know who you are. They don't know the chemistry you have with the person you might be walking with. Let's just imagine a scenario real quick so I can explain this better. Imagine a woman who had been severely raped, hurt, pounded down on, bloody, dark, horrible crime had been committed. Imagine she had been abused for years. I'm talking dark stuff, like real dark, like actually scary. I'm not talking about a little bit of bickering. I'm talking about like actually dark stuff, like stuff that will give you nightmares. Imagine that happened to a person, right? They're scarred. Imagine this woman didn't go out to the grocery store for years. She didn't go out of her house. She didn't go places or anything. Hang on, I'm going to make sure it's still recording. Alright, cool. Alright. Now, imagine after a number of years, this woman is starting to sort of heal, come out of her shell a little bit. The night terrors are less frequent. And she decides that she's actually going to attempt going to the grocery store, something that she's had to have a family member do for her for years because she's too scared and skittish anytime she tries to leave the house because of what happened. She's trying to rebuild herself. Well, she goes to the grocery store. Then she hears playing on the radio that corporate fucking hell music that you always hear playing in grocery stores. That retail hell music. You hear, for example, that song. I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I ain't got no privacy. That's like a fucking, it's some pop song that they always play. Some old, like, 90s pop song or something. It's got, like, Michael Jackson or something singing, like, the verse, and then it's got some dude, like, rapping or something. I don't know, but it's a pretty popular song that you would hear playing through the radio. To a normal person, that's just some random retail hell music, some elevator music that they have playing in the grocery store, whatever. But to this woman, it is going to be deeply emotionally effective. It is going to permeate her psychological state so deeply that it's probably going to be the end of her grocery shopping trip. She's probably going to get in her car and drive right home. And that's just the music they have playing in the store. I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I ain't got no privacy. Alright, let me dissect why that would affect her that way real quick. That person who did that thing to her, she probably constantly fears that he's watching her, or stalking her, or around every corner. Right? And she probably is constantly trying to not be that way, not be so skittish. She's trying to move away from that and be like a normal person and feel safe again, right? So she's probably always trying to psychologically sort of calm herself down and judge herself for being so skittish and say, no, you don't need to be that way, right? She's trying to put a good or bad value on being incredibly suspicious or skeptical or skittish like an animal. So that voice that she hears coming through that song will basically be saying, it'll be a sort of condescending, comedic, fuck you, making fun of her for her struggles and her trouble and her baggage and her scars. It'll be something that opens that wound and sort of presses her buttons a little bit. I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I ain't got no privacy. When he jumps in and he says that, all fucking, and I ain't got no privacy, that's clearly like a comedic little voice he's doing, you know? That's where like the condescending, demonic jester comes in. Because it's clearly trying to like make light of it, or make fun of it, right? Or like, that's kind of how it will come across to a person, right? So that's just one example. And you might think, well, it's her fault for not being able to keep in mind that that voice coming through that radio is not a person talking to her. The person who made that song doesn't know her. That song was made 30 years ago. It's being played through the radio. The person who played the radio didn't do that just to screw with her. The person who put the radio on the aux and played it through the speakers didn't know what the radio was going to play, and the person at the radio station didn't know who was going to be listening that day. You know, this isn't some grand scheme. That's something a healthy person who has no scars or baggage would be able to say. Yeah, you're right. It's the receiver, the person receiving the transmission, the sound, the song. It's a responsibility to sort of post-hearing add that is not for me, that's just coincidence, they don't know who I am, they're not talking to me, right? But a person who's incredibly stressed out, who's possibly scared, worked up for any reason. Say an athlete who's just about to go into the finals, kind of nervous. Say a person who's going to do their first show on stage somewhere, right? A little nervous. Say a pregnant woman who is about to give birth, who's coming up on the 9-month mark. She's going to be nervous about the baby coming out right? Say a person, just like our woman in the first scenario, who had been beaten, stalked, maybe disfigured from a murderer or something, and barely escaped, right? She's not going to have the mental capacity to sit there and say, oh, that's not for me, and remain calm. Their emotion is already at a heightened state, just existing. People like that could stare at a wall in a silent room and still experience a heightened state of excitement, and not the good kind of excitement, bad excitement, anxiety, fear, right? Being sketched out, right? They hear the radio talking to them, they hear the TV talking to them, they hear the people walk by and they hear them talking to them, right? They're scared about everything. They're constantly running through everything that happened, trying to make sense of it, trying to figure out if they should just like put up their walls and protect themselves, or if they should let go and try to be normal again. You know, they're trying to balance out what do they make of everything that's happened. And there are chemicals flowing through their veins at every single moment. Their vital organs have to deal with, have to process every single passing moment, that make their emotional realities a completely different place than what you would think looking at them, not knowing anything about them. It takes computing power to do that extra work, to take logical knowledge, such as, I don't know those people, this is just coincidence, and actually turn that into an emotionally relevant thing. To take the knowledge that those people are not talking about me, and to say, okay, now I'm going to take that knowledge, and I'm going to make my heart rate drop, and I'm going to calm down, and I'm just going to forget about it and go do what I was doing. That takes an incredibly large amount of computing power, and people who are already stressed out and messed up about stuff, they're not going to have the ability to use that computing power to actually make it emotionally effective, emotionally actionable. They might logically know, no matter how stressed out they are, no matter what they've been through, that logically it's probably not a grand scheme here. I'm probably just tripping out. But that being said, they still lack the ability to turn that knowledge into an emotional effect to calm themselves down or to keep themselves from getting fearful or excited in the first place. It's a responsibility of the senders of transmissions to do that first. People who are speaking, who are making the sounds, making the faces, who occupy spaces, they need to understand preemptively that before I allow these words to leave my lips, I'm going to make sure that the syntax, the consonants, the vowels, the humor, the actual vocabulary that I use is not going to be something that is, even in the most mild form, in the most subtle hue of the stylistic choice, going to be negative or aggressive. They need to be incredibly sensitive preemptively and realize that they can still get their point out without doing that stuff. They don't need to talk way louder than they have to in a public space to interact with the person next to them. You don't have to walk through a grocery store, a bar, a restaurant, talking like this to your friend. You don't have to talk that loud. The person right next to you can hear you. You have to be self-aware to realize, are you excited because you're in a crowded space and you're talking louder than you need to because you're sort of situationally aware of all the people around you who could see you and hear you, so you up your volume as a way to like occupy the space in a certain way? Or people do that. People talk louder than they need to when they're in a crowded space, not because of a volume thing, but because of like they're like subtly interacting with the people who they're not even interacting with, right? We need to be self-aware of those things. Only talk as loud as you need to for the person next to you to hear. The person across the building should not be able to ignore your conversation. If the person wants to tune out of what you're saying, they should be able to. If they want to eavesdrop on your conversation, they should have to go out of their fucking way to like read your lips while you're talking to tell what you're saying, you know? That's just like common decency. Speak at a normal volume. Don't be louder than you have to be when you're in a public space. It's just regular manners, to be honest. If people had just like basic manners, this wouldn't be an issue anyway. Right? Don't curse in public. Right? Try not to, at least. Don't say fucking asshole, because even if you're joking, that might hit that person who's in that emotional state real hard in that second. Right? And you come off as sort of like a demonic jester archetype in their emotional reality. That's how you're going to affect people when you're public. You have power in your voice, in your facial expressions, in your ability to communicate 24/7. And you have to keep these people in mind. And there is a culture that I know of, because I've mentioned this to people in person, of people who are just like, fuck those people. What the fuck do I care about some fucking tweaker? Good. They fucking tweaked out on what I was saying. Good, fuck him. What the fuck do I care? Think I'm going to go around being all sensitive, tiptoeing around people? You expect me to tiptoe around people who are just fucking weaklings? Oh yeah. So what? Some chick dyed her hair green and cut her wrists. The fuck do I care? Fuck her. You know, right? You should care about those people. You're honestly a horrible person if you don't care. You should care. When you're making music, when you're doing anything. Right? When you're in public, when you're occupying public spaces, you should remain decent. You should never speak in an indecent manner when you're out in public, period. We have to realize that the old world, the people from the 1940s, they probably were onto something. They just might not have known it. We need to dial it back a little bit, because there are practical reasons for things, for traditions. And this is one of those traditions, being decent in a public space, through your voice, through how you dress, everything, that I think there are practical reasons for. And I'm realizing it the hard way, you know? But I think that's what we need for it to stick. Nobody's going to care about tradition if we don't have a practical reason to actually do it. And I think this is one practical reason for people to actually be decent in what they do and what they say. You should be able to get your voice out, right? But in a controlled manner, in a controlled space. A person should have to go through with a certain amount of intention, a certain number of steps to actually access what it is you're trying to say if you're saying something controversial, or opinionated, or emotionally heavy, emotionally driven, right? If you want to have a rant about something, write a fucking book about it so they can read the title of the book and know what they're getting into, Don't just be talking about that shit in public loud as fuck, right? Because ain't nobody going to know what you're talking about. They're just going to hear the emotional passion behind it, and it's probably going to just take advantage of their pre-existing injuries, wounds, and weaknesses and not be effective at all in the way that you thought it was going to be. I sort of lost my train of thought. I'm going to try to round this out. I think you're beginning to understand the concept of what this is all about. Another song example, I guess, while I try to figure out what I was saying, is that song, I'm gonna get you one way or another. That was in one of my examples in one of my other videos. The lady who made that song didn't realize that she was going to put that on the radio. Every single person across the planet was going to hear that in all sorts of random situations. Do you think there's people out there, yes or no, that are going to be messed up psychologically by hearing a random transmission from this electronic device plugged into the wall saying, I'm gonna get you one way or another? I would be fucked up about that. Imagine you're in some fucked up situation and you hear the radio just adding on to all of it, right? It can get scary. And when you notice every single person in the world doing this stuff, it's like, yo, it can get really, really overwhelming for people. And to think that there aren't enough people that proactively try to avoid doing this stuff, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary to think that there's so many people who are willy-nilly with this stuff. And the scary part comes in when you think there's no way that they're not aware of that. They probably just don't care. That's scary, right? That people aren't, like, don't feel that vibe, that sensation, that sort of sensitivity, and say, oh, I'm not going to say that. Or, oh, let me just slow my roll here and decrease my volume real quick, you know. It's scary to think that there's so many people out here who, for whatever reason, through whatever universal mechanism, have the innate ability and tendency to twist the knife and salt the wound to people around them all the time, everywhere they go. This needs to be something that we're consciously doing all the time. We need to understand these principles and digest them until they become what we are, right? Decent, controlled, right? Allowing a place that people can heal around us. It's what we need to do for each other if we want to become strong as a species. For example, you know that one song on the radio, it says, jump! It says, I get up and I never come down. Whoa! I forgot the song, but it goes, just jump and might as well jump. It's like a fucking like cheesy ass 80s song, like 80s pop song. It's a male singer. I don't know if you know what song. You can look it up. It's just, I get up and I'll never come down. It's like this real famous song. But that song, there's a part of that song where he just says, jump. Might as well just jump. Do it. Jump. Right? And I don't know about you, but when I hear that song, I imagine a person standing on the edge of a skyscraper, ready to end their life, and a song playing through the radio within earshot saying, jump. Might as well just jump. Right? And then the guy says, you know what? The universe wants me to fucking do it. Or the universe just doesn't give a shit. And then he jumps. There's a lot of irresponsibility, lack of responsibility that has to take place for something like that to reach that sort of proliferation across our ethereal realm. What I mean by ethereal realm is the dimensions of audibility, dimensions of visibility. It takes a lot of irresponsibility, and it almost gets scary if you want to sort of be a conspiracy theory about it, because I'm not going to knock you for that. I don't know the truth. I don't know the hidden secrets, right? It's almost scarier if you think maybe people are aware of it, and that's why it became that proliferated across our ethereal realm. I'm not going to get into that, though. What matters is what you do. Don't add to it. Whatever it is, don't add to it. That's my point. Got to be sensitive to these people. And talking back on, if I'm going to touch back base on the people who say, fuck those people. If they're just some tweaked out fucking psyche mental fucking person, what the fuck do I care? You want me to walk around caring about fucking green-haired fucking, psych ward chicks? Or psych ward people, or just some meth head tweaker homeless piece of shit on the side of the corner? You want me to rock around and control what I say for those fuckers? You know, people who talk like that, which I don't agree with that. I think that's pretty irresponsible and pretty immature to have that philosophy when it comes to this stuff. My response to them, you know, they might think that, hey, it's their responsibility to be logical enough to say, they're not talking about me, it's just a coincidence, right? But I mentioned the lack of computing power in those individuals before. Those are going to be the only people who are really negatively affected by this type of thing. But that's all the more reason for you to care about it, right? It's not going to affect most people, but it's really going to affect those select few. And it's going to take them from the bottom and pull them even lower, right? You should care about those people. That's basically at the heart of what sensitivity is. being empathetic, sympathetic towards other people. It's realizing that when people are down, they need to be healed, right? It's your responsibility to do that. If you hold any power, then it can be used to either heal or hurt. Well, to say that it's their responsibility to sort of post receiving, do the extra work to say, I'm going to go against what my instinct and my emotion says and logically remind myself that this is just a coincidence. First of all, they're not going to have the computing capacity to do that most of the time. And second of all, that's a shitty-ass technique or suggestion. Because, let me just put it this way. Imagine a scenario where you have a warehouse where they create product. They manufacture some sort of goods, and they ship it out. That thing is going to come in as raw material. Then they're going to have a number of people who assemble it. Then they're going to have a number of people who package it. And then they're going to have people who ship it out. Okay? You got 5 people on the conveyor belt. You got a couple guys dealing with pallets, a couple guys on the truck, and a couple guys on intake getting all the stuff in, right? That product is going to pass through 10 fucking hands and go past the quality check guy too before it actually makes it out the door. That is 10 opportunities for somebody to notice that something's wrong with that part or that item. Saying that it's a responsibility of the transmission receiver to post-reception do the extra work to tell themselves that it's just a coincidence is like saying that it's the guy's job who just drives a forklift and loads up the semi-trailer at the very last step before the product gets sent out to make sure that everything's good before it gets shipped off. Instead of saying, no, the guy who first receives a raw material should check it out before he sends it to the conveyor belt in the first place. Each person at the conveyor belt should look at it real quick and say something if they see something wrong with it. You know? It should never get to the point of getting shipped out when it's already fucked up. Or for everybody just using the excuse of, oh, well, there's a guy behind me. He could have seen it too. You know? No, we should all be working to make sure we keep it clean before it's even created. Keep it clean in your head. Keep it clean when it comes out of your mouth. That way, everybody only has to do a little bit of work to make sure that everybody stays sane, right, and focused, and we can all work as a collective doing tasks together, building things, right? You gotta understand psychological states, and there's a lot of people who just like to make fun of those people. If you're one of those people, then you suck. You honestly suck, you know? Just don't. Just be more mature than that. I know it's an easy way to make fun of a situation, for you to laugh with your friends. It's entertaining. There's a lot of shit that's really easy to laugh at. I'll laugh at a crazy-ass person. In my mind, I'll say, okay, that's actually fucked up, though, but I don't know. I might laugh at something like that at first, but if I do it, I'm going to make sure I'm behind, like, tinted-ass windows and in an enclosed space with, like, my friend who nobody can, that there's no chance that that person is going to see me laughing at them, you know? Like, just got to be a little more caring than that. Laughing at a person in reality, or, you know, that's basically my whole point. I think that's everything I wanted to say. So that's what Project Divine Intervention is. When I post like a commercial or a song or something like that, or maybe a story about something that happened, I'm basically speaking on the situations where a transmission is irresponsibly created, irresponsibly sent, and holds the potential to negatively twist the knife and salt the wound in somebody's weakened psychological and emotional state, you know. And I want to point it out because it's something that affects me all the time. I receive the transmissions all the time, right? Like, I can't turn on the news. I turn on the news, that shit is a hellhole, man. I don't listen to the radio because all these pop songs got weird-ass shit in them, to be honest. If you start to hear it, you'll start to hear it, and you'll start to wonder why. Why do they all do that? And were they all never aware of that? Or were they aware of it at one point and they decided they didn't care? I don't know. Remember when you were hungry. Just because you're full now doesn't mean that you have the right to forget what it felt like to be hungry, right? A lot of people believe that when you're healing, when you're climbing the ladder, rising the ranks, getting yourself out of the dumps, from rags to riches, that you're supposed to just shoot up and become high, right? As powerful as you can be, but you always should remain sober. That's what a lot of people don't realize. I'm not even talking about drugs. I'm talking about your psychological state, how you choose to be. When you become strong enough, high enough, powerful enough, healthy enough, it's a lot of people's understanding that you're supposed to want to be high, more powerful, more happy, more like, yeah, walk in and get it done. Bam, I'm sick. I'll fuck some shit up. I'll make it happen. But at the end of the day, you always got to remain sober, right? No matter how healthy you are, you should always remember what it felt like to be hungry. No matter how healthy you are, you should always remember your worst moment, right? Because you need to be ready to be there for people who aren't as healthy as you. And you need to make sure that you are not creating an environment that might be too spastic, too uninhabitable for people like that, right? You don't want to be the reason why somebody was having a bad day, walked in and snapped, right? No, you don't, right? It's a higher level of mature control in everything that you do. That's what it is. Every single thing that comes out of your mouth. And I know that in this video I cursed a lot. I said a lot of fucked up shit. There it is again. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have cursed. I shouldn't have spoken as passionately as I did. I should get better with that. But I guess I'm going to go out of my way. This is one thing you can do too. Trust me, if you heard anything trippy from this video, it wasn't about you. I don't know you. I'm talking into a camera right now. If the universe is speaking through me to you, well, then I think that's bullshit and I think that's wrong, and I'm right there with you. Fuck that, The universe shouldn't be speaking to nobody. Shut the fuck up, universe. You know what I mean? Let me have my own personal sovereignty and agency in my own psyche, please. Right? That's something we all deserve. So, this is a higher level of righteousness, a higher level of responsibility, a higher level of maturity, a higher level of spiritual connection, spiritual growth. This is a higher level of being an elder on this planet. This is a higher level of being a father, a mother. These are things that you need to understand and become skilled at if you expect yourself to be spiritually respectable. To be honest. And to me, that's everything. That's everything. That's what Project Divine Intervention is. That's the end of this video. If you sat through it all the way, hopefully you understand the concept now. And I'm sorry that was such a long-winded explanation, but whatever. I didn't plan this out. I'm just speaking off the top of the dome. So I know I didn't articulate it that well. I love the word articulate. Articulate is like one of my favorite words. Articulation. I know I didn't articulate it that well, but hopefully it was good enough to get the point across. Alright, have a great day, and I actually mean that. That's not a backwards, condescending, sarcastic statement. I really mean have a great day. Okay? Please. Because, I know I don't know you, and why would I want you to have a good day? I'm just saying, man. No more darkness. No more darkness. Please. I'm going to do this. This is going to look fucked up and weird and trippy. I guess I'll have to explain it too if I'm going to do it. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. Right? And that's what that means is if all you can do is post-reception, emotionally tell yourself that it's just a coincidence, I'm right there with you. I understand it's a struggle. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil, right? If you have to just not go out, not look at people, not listen, put earbuds in, just not say as much, right? If you have to put earbuds in so you don't hear the weird shit, if you have to not look at people's faces or not look at screens or whatever, or not really go out that much so you don't see the weird shit, and if you have to just not speak that much so you don't accidentally say the weird shit yourself, then so be it, man. We're trying to clean up this emotional, ethereal realm. We're trying to keep it clean, keep it more neutral for people so that healing can take place. Alright? So, with that being said, carry on. We're in this shit together. Yes, it is an army, right? No, none of us know each other, but It's one of those, like, if you know things, right? And hopefully this video, if anybody was already receptive enough to this type of stuff to actually sit through the video all the way, will sort of get more people on board, right? So, hey man, you know, in a way, although it's not an actual established coalition, none of us will know each other, it is a sort of non-existent army of people who know and understand and who work to make things the way they are. So, hey, if that makes you feel good, if that gives you encouragement, if you want to actually take that shit up as some sort of, like, purpose in life and responsibility, then all the more respect to you and welcome to the team, brother. Alright. Or sister. Alright. Well, yeah. Have a good day.